It's the crime of the century. That's how President Donald Trump described Barack Obama's falsification and manufacture of false evidence and intelligence to try and pin Donald Trump's election victory in 2016 on Russia and their hackers and their bots, something that Russia was unable to do. We know that now thanks to the DNI, Tulsi Gabbard releasing and declassifying all those reports and documents and memos showing that Barack Obama is a very, very bad person and a very, very criminal element in this country. And President Donald Trump wants everybody to know that he himself manufactured the Russia hoax, Crooked Hillary, Sleepy Joe, and numerous others participated in this crime, the crime of the century, irrefutable evidence, a major threat to our country. This, of course, will be the beginning, hopefully, of this investigation and not the end, as President Donald Trump and his director of national intelligence and hopefully other law enforcement agencies are now actively pursuing this investigation against Barack Obama, trying to undo the will of the people, interfere in an election, and really perform what can only be called a coup d'etat against a sitting president of the United States. And after 6 months of pure winning, President Donald Trump has decided to celebrate by winning some more. And most of his signature agenda items, most of his campaign promises have not only surpassed expectations, but continue to surpass expectations and are ramping up thanks to the passage of the One Big Beautiful Bill and also the ridiculousness of the Democrat Party and the, I guess you would say, I told you so aspect of President Donald Trump's campaign promises. For example, the border and illegal immigration. President Donald Trump said the border must be closed and illegal criminal aliens must be deported en masse in the most massive effort we've ever seen. Well, there continues to be evidence of illegal immigrants committing crimes against Americans, brutal crimes against Americans. And the situation in New York is just the latest. Tom Homan, border czar, spoke again about these migrants in New York, one of whom shot a Customs and Border Patrol agent who was off duty. Luckily, he was carrying his firearm and was able to fight the attacker off. The attacker was then dropped on the ground in front of a hospital while his buddy rode away on a moped. And this, of course, just exacerbates the entire argument that Donald Trump has been making since the election. These illegal criminal alien gang members need to go. They are a danger to Americans.
Well, Governor Hochul, she supported the Bail Reform Act. This is why these illegal aliens, walked out of a NYPD precinct. They didn't even get to Rikers Island. So it starts with bail reform. Then the sanctuary city, starts with de Blasio and the city council. I put a lot of blame on the city council because we had an agreement to put ICE back into Rikers Island so we can arrest a lot of bad guys in the safety and security of Rikers Island. And the city council sued and stopped that from happening. So I put a lot of blame on the city council why the crime rate is so high in New York. But look, we're arresting record amounts of public safety threats in New York. We're making New York safer every day because of the people we arrest. But we got a lot more to do. We got a lot more to find. And that's why President Trump committed 2 weeks ago. We are going to prioritize sanctuary cities because we know we have a problem. We know they're releasing public safety threats every day. And I said today at the press conference, we're going to flood the zone of sanctuary cities. We're sending additional agents. We're going to flood the neighborhoods with officers. We're going to flood worksite enforcement. If they don't give us access to the bad guy in Rikers Island or at the precincts, then we'll go to the neighborhood and find them. We're not going to give up on this. We're going to send more resources. Double down, as President Trump said, triple down.
And that is exactly what the One Big Beautiful Bill has done. It's given them the resources and the money to boost the Border Patrol and all of these ICE facilities around the country. It's given them the necessary assets that they need to make sure that these officers, these brave ICE officers, can go into any neighborhood they need to go into and extricate or hunt down and remove the illegal aliens who are there, the criminals who are there, who are committing these horrible crimes against Americans. And Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York, is going to stand in the way. And Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, will probably stand in the way. And all of these mayors and city councils and these blue sanctuary cities will stand in the way. But Tom Homan doesn't care. He's going to do his job, the job that he was given by the president of the United States and the voters. And he's going to use the money that he has now to make sure that that job gets done. Stephen Miller, the deputy chief of staff in charge of immigration and deportation, was on with Laura Ingraham. And he was talking about Hunter Biden who Hunter Biden came out with a very quizzical podcast interview over the week. It was a YouTube video where he teased a potential run for president, which I thought was just a horrible idea. But he also said some other things. And one of the things he mentioned was the border. And Stephen Miller was not at all excited for Hunter Biden to be commenting about Donald Trump's performance when it comes to immigration, seeing as how his father was the one who let these hundreds of millions or tens of millions of illegal immigrants into the country in the first place.
Hunter Biden's father, his administration, presided over the greatest invasion on American soil in American history. The mass theft and pillaging of American jobs, wealth, and security. And you're seeing the results of that with that video footage that we've all watched now of two illegal aliens with serial criminal records that Joe Biden, that the Democrats, the Democrat Party, purposefully let into the country, set free, had custody of, and released. And then they ambushed this brave CBP officer who, despite the injuries he sustained, fought off his attackers. And of course, one of those attackers, you can now see the footage, was dumped by his accomplice in an emergency room after sustaining 3 gunshot wounds. But this is happening all over this country. Joe Biden and the Democrat Party allowed millions of military-age men with criminal records and criminal intentions and criminal ambitions into the country to prey on us, to prey on our cities, to prey on our communities. Then on top of that, millions more are stealing our benefits, stealing health care, stealing spots in our public schools, and stealing the wages and the incomes of working Americans. It is a travesty across the board. Under President Trump's leadership, though, record numbers are being picked up, deported, arrested, jailed, and sent out.
And that is something that is true. Joe Biden, committing his own crime of the century, opened up the border and allowed these people to flood in. And they came here with the intention of being leeches on society. They came here with the intention of milking the system for everything they could, whether it was through benefits or whether it was through criminal activity. And we've had instances, hundreds of thousands of instances of both illegal immigrants who are taking advantage of our taxpayer-funded programs and illegal immigrants who are just taking advantage of our taxpayers by physically abusing and hurting and raping and murdering them and stealing and armed robbery. And it's horrible. And it's something that President Donald Trump has hung his MAGA hat on in the second administration. In the first 6 months, we've seen an incredible response. He posted this amazing, truly amazing infographic on his Truth Social. One of the great success stories in the history of borders, he writes, and I'm including borders from anywhere in the world. Congratulations to Kristi Noem, Tom Homan, Rodney Scott, Pam Bondi, and Pete Hegseth, but a special congratulations to Border Patrol and ICE. These are all absolutely amazing people. And it shows that in October of last year, there were 100,000 encounters at the border, over 100,000 encounters at the border. And by February of this year, it had dropped to almost zero, which is right around where it is now. The first 6 months of the Trump administration have all seen roughly 100,000 fewer border encounters every single month, thanks to President Donald Trump's border security, the ICE agents, the Border Patrol, all of the officials in the interagencies and the departments that are working together, and of course, President Donald Trump, who put all this into motion. And that is the winning that is going to continue. As Tom Homan said, we're doubling down and tripling down. There's a lot of criminals still out there who need to be rounded up, and the White House's order is to round up the criminals and get them out of here because we want these crimes to end.
Can you imagine getting a lecture on public safety from the party that has let child rapists and murderers into this country in mass?
Yeah, no, we can't. And that's why we're not going to allow it to happen. I love, by the way, when Stephen Miller gets super hype on any particular subject. Another subject is President Donald Trump and his economic viability and the fact that he's been able to recover this economy so quickly, even despite the fact that Fed Chair Jerome Powell is fighting against him. Scott Bessent said that, look, the Wall Street Journal, all of these other, which Donald Trump is suing, by the way, all of these other organizations, they underestimated how high functioning President Donald Trump was and his ability to do multiple things to a very high level at the same time.
Newspapers like the Wall Street Journal are not used to a high-functioning executive president. They are used to, perhaps President Biden, perhaps President Obama, who was not as economically sophisticated as President Trump. President Trump solicits a whole range of opinions and then makes a decision. So he takes a lot of inputs, and at the end of the day, it's his decision. Just as it was his decision on Iran. And look at the tremendous success there. Look at the tremendous success at the border. And that is what a great executive looks like.
Yeah, and that is something that this country is needed. And really, I think that President Donald Trump's effectiveness is stellar, and it's shocking, and it is head spinning. But also, when you compare it to Joe Biden, it really takes on a new turn. When you have somebody who, the rumor now, according to Hunter Biden, was that Joe Biden was on Ambien. When you have a president who was on Ambien and moved at a snail's pace and hid from the public, and you immediately juxtapose that with somebody like President Donald Trump, it makes Donald Trump look even more effective and fast-paced and just moving at light speed. It makes him look even more Trumpian than he is, and it makes Joe Biden look even more ridiculous. Caroline Levitt said, "Look, even with this victory, this 6-month victory, and what we've seen with President Donald Trump in the last 6 months is proof positive of what Scott Bessent just said."
They've learned nothing from President Trump's overwhelming victory on November 5th. The American people want deportations. They want secure borders. That's why we've had the most successful 6 months of any administration. The president has delivered on his two core campaign promises: defeat inflation and secure the homeland in record time.
And that is something that he's going to continue to do. And one of the other things that he's working on is, of course, peace worldwide. And that includes not just Ukraine and Russia, but in the Middle East.
I think the president's message on this conflict we've seen in the Middle East taking place for far too long, that has become quite brutal, especially in recent days. You've seen reports of more people dying. The president never likes to see that. He wants the killing to end, and he wants to negotiate a ceasefire in this region. He wants to see all of the hostages released from Gaza. That has been a top priority for this president. Within this 6 months, we have seen many of the hostages released, including the last living American hostage, Edon Alexander, which was a result of this administration's diplomatic efforts and approach to ending this conflict. And again, this is another conflict that the president inherited from the previous administration, who was so weak and incompetent. It led to so much chaos and death around the world, but this president is focused on solving it.
And that is something that he is focused on solving. He's focused on solving that. He's focused on ending all of these Joe Biden era monstrosities. One of the things that they've ended now is the student loan forgiveness under the IBR. The Department of Education, as reported by Forbes, suspends the student loan forgiveness under the income-based repayment plan, or IBR. It's one of several income-driven repayment plan programs offered to borrowers, and is the only current plan not subject to any legal challenge or court injunction. President Donald Trump has also released the the MLK Jr. files. Those are now declassified and therefore public purview on the website. We're still waiting on the Epstein files, but President Donald Trump has promised to get Pam Bondi working on those as well. There is so much going on at a record pace, and this has just been the first 6 months. President Donald Trump is focused on every aspect of domestic policy and foreign policy, keeping the economy strong, making the economy even stronger, putting more money in your pocket, creating better jobs, fortifying our military, keeping our borders safe, continuing the purge of illegal criminal aliens from every city, not just the sanctuary cities, but every city, and doing it for the next 3.5 years. Because once again, it's only been 6 months. There is so much more to cover. There's so much more to cover every single day. President Trump traveling to Scotland. Oh, this is a fun fact, by the way. After the kerfuffle with the Wall Street Journal and the lawsuit, the multi-billion-dollar lawsuit that President Donald Trump has now filed against the fake news Wall Street Journal, News Corp, and Rupert Murdoch. After that, what we see now is that Donald Trump is also has also banned a reporter from the Wall Street Journal from his flight to Scotland on Air Force One, because as he says, why would we want fake news journalists covering us on Air Force One? This lawsuit is now multi-tiered, and not only is he going after financial retribution, but also he's limiting the access of the Wall Street Journal because of what he describes as their misrepresentation of the facts and their flat out lies. Like I said, there's so much more to cover every single day. That's why we have a second podcast. Our main podcast at 1 p.m. Eastern is called Mark Kaye Saves the Republic. You can watch us live on Rumble or YouTube or Facebook, any of those platforms, or you can download our podcast and listen at your leisure. Spotify, iTunes, wherever you get your podcasts, search for Mark Kaye Saves the Republic. Download, subscribe, listen, and enjoy.